It is season 2 of Catch Some Soulshine. Thank you for joining me on this journey of healing. This season, I'm going to focus on healing your mind, igniting your soul, and embracing creative living. Welcome back to another episode of Catch Some Soulshine, and I'm joined today by Carey Kirkella. She is one of my co-authors in the book Radical Self-Love, and really that's what it's all about, right? She also developed a program or a practice called the Lens Method, which we're going to talk about today. Throughout her journey, she has had ups and downs, darkness that she's had to muddle through, and probably still is to a certain extent. So we will talk about that too. I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit more about you, and then we'll dig right in.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much, Dawn. My name is Carey, and I am an award-winning photographer as well. That's kind of my main gig. But I've been through a lot. I live in New York City. I live in Brooklyn, which is a very intense place for a highly sensitive person. But my journey really, my story is really about mental health and how I use creativity through photography as a way to help to really heal myself and really just cope every day as well. I'm so excited to really help break down stigmas around sharing issues around mental health. And that's really one of my main missions.
I'm right there with you. I have a heart for mental health and substance use disorder because my life has been greatly impacted by both of those. When we get to the point where we are just radically loving ourselves and doing what fulfills our spirit, all the stuff around us is kind of like fluff. I know we have family, we have communities, we have support groups, there's medication, there's doctors, all of that I'm not discounting. But what I am saying is what it comes down to is filling your soul, your spirit, your core. Because when we take care of us and we have that connection to, you can call it higher power, God, universe, source, whatever you want, that's when we're our very best. And that's when we can get to our best work and selves and help other people. Why don't we dig into, why did you gravitate towards this issue of mental health?
I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was in my late 20s. And I'm not someone who has a lot of big ups and downs. I guess I've had certain textbook examples of things that have happened to me that are representative of what sometimes happens to people with bipolar disorder, but more when there's extreme stress and a lot of lack of sleep, basically. The second time, I've been hospitalized 3 times in over a period of 16 years. The first, I don't know if I need to get into the first time, but the second time was soon after my sister passed away suddenly. She was diagnosed with breast cancer just 4 months before she passed, and she was 40 years old and had a 9-year-old daughter at the time. My wedding was a month after that, and we couldn't postpone it because we would have lost thousands of dollars. And so we decided to go ahead, do it. But my mind and my soul and my brain were just, and my emotions. And it was a very intense wedding too. It wasn't like easy, let's just say. That was the second time. And when I kind of came out of the fog, I was depressed for 2 years after that. And I was 36, and my husband and I wanted to have a baby. I had a couple of miscarriages after that. It was like really a lot going on. A friend recommended that I start photographing sisters as a way to help me. And so I just got chills. And I started photographing just sisters, nothing to do with breast cancer. But then I started photographing breast cancer survivors with their sisters as a way to help me and to sort of contribute to her. And I started to learn more also about all of these other women who were doing something good out of their grief. I started working with volunteering, photographing behind the scenes fashion shows of these women who are all breast cancer survivors that walked on these runways in New York Fashion Week for Ana Ono Intimates, which I have a really great online magazine now that's displaying all those images right now. That was really just a way to start planting the seed or lay the brick for the foundation of what I'm doing now, because I realized how powerful it was for me to create these images. And then also it was so powerful for the women too, to kind of see themselves as these, the resilient, beautiful women that they are. Everything that I do has been about self-love when I really think about all of the the whole journey, and
Mhm.
I'm still learning. That was sort of the start of it. And then I was pregnant with my son, and I ended up having postpartum psychosis when I was in the hospital, which was sort of my biggest fear. And it was a terrifying time. And then after I got out of the hospital 2 weeks later, and I had postpartum anxiety, which I had never even heard of. I photographed this whole time too. So it was it's just an interesting thing that I've always weaved my photography into what I do. During the pandemic, I started taking more photos with my phone, because normally I'm photographing people and I wasn't doing that at the time. And I started photographing, my son and our journeys, taking walks outside and all that. And I started to realize anybody could do this. Like, I would look back at my photos and kind of have more self-awareness about what was going on, and just, I don't know, creating stories with my images.
I really want to touch on the bipolar disorder itself. There are so many people that may have been diagnosed and cannot accept it because it is such a stigmatizing disorder. The problem is people think that you have to have these huge mood swings up and down and in the valley. And, it can be very subtle, like not sleeping for days or having these violent anger outbursts or not wanting to get involved in anything. And when I discovered creativity, I also am a researcher. I love science. I started reading about how creativity of any kind helps heal the brain. And even when you're in your heightened state of awareness with bipolar, if you're infusing that creativity, you're still using those neural pathways to create new memories. I think that's one of the most difficult things with bipolar from my experience is that heightened mania state is also heightened with creativity. You feel like you're on top of the world. You feel you're unstoppable. A lot of ideas come in. So it's difficult to be on medication that evens that out. And what I can say from my experience in helping people with bipolar disorder is the more we infuse that radical self love, do the things that really nurture our soul and spirit, the better those creativity ideas flow. Has
Definitely.
that
Yeah.
been your experience?
Yeah, for sure. I don't need to take medication anymore on a regular basis, which is I can really tell the difference between the two, but obviously I always have to be careful for the rest of my life about my sleep and just taking good care of my body. My experience has been that having that real trust in my intuition and my spiritual guidance has really been the thing that keeps me healthy. There's more and more studies now. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Lisa Miller. She's done her whole life has been dedicated to studying MRI scans and everything about the brain and the spiritual connection.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's proven over and over again that people who have a stronger spiritual connection are more readily able to heal from depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder. It's pretty great that it's starting to.
Well, and I wanted to touch on that because we can heal our bodies.
Yes.
I'm a little bit older, so when I was first getting into the self-healing, Louise Hay was huge,
Hmm.
and she's written several books, and she talks about different parts in the body, how they relate to our emotions, and how you can do mantras and different things to help heal that. I believe the same is true for mental illness. In most cases, not all. Like, same with diabetes. I believe There are a great number of people that can heal their bodies from diabetes with proper exercise, diet, nutrition, choosing non-glucose foods. We don't always do that. Same with mental health. Diet plays a huge part
Oh,
in it. There's another doctor, Dr. Amen, who is really big into the brain SPECT imaging for ADHD. And I studied him when Bradley was growing up because his ADHD was so profound. There's diet, there's exercise, there's meditation, all these things that really take radical self love. That do we do them?
mhm.
Not as much as we probably should or could. I don't like to should on ourselves. These are all techniques that we can do, but I want to get into your lens program that you developed and tell people a little bit more about that because I find it fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. So LENS is an acronym and it stands for light, empathy, now, and storytelling. The framework is really about practicing and embodying and creating around the 5 pillars of emotional resilience through photography. And it's smartphone camera friendly. And the 5 pillars are mindfulness, self-care, self-awareness, positive relationships, and purpose. And so my full program is where we meet in a group and I kind of I share the inspiration, images and inspiration around each of those topics one at a time. 1 week, is about mindfulness. Mindfulness workshop, for example, is about creating images of nature as a walking meditation practice. And I also do that as a standalone workshop. So we go to a park and I talk about how it's important to connect with our senses in nature. And really, I get people hugging trees, like really feel the air, really forget about your device for a while and get into nature. And then we get out our device, and at some point and we take a stroll and create images around what is the energy that we want to connect with, right? That
Mhm.
nature represents. Is it Virginia Woolf has a really great quote. She said, "I am rooted, but I flow." What does that look like? Right? So for example, and then we share our images in the group. So after, in the full program, so people go off and live their lives, they make their photos with their phone or whatever, then they upload them to my I just want to explain the process because sometimes people are like, what?
Yeah.
What do you do? And then in the group, we share our photos, like go around the room and kind of share our experience and our photos related to that particular topic. So that's it in a nutshell. And it's really powerful to do that because we might share our photos on Instagram or whatever, but people aren't really having deep conversations around what are you really doing for self-care, like whatever,
Right.
that for example.
Right. And that's really where we get the energetic connection is by sharing our stories and explaining what something means to us deeply. When you talk about trees, I love hugging trees, and I've read some research about how trees really do emit this energy. Then I saw a photograph. You've probably seen it. It's pretty famous of one tree. Whoops. And then there was a tree right next to it that they cut. They cut the bottom or something, and the one tree had grown branches into the other tree. And when they cut it, the other tree started growing using the roots of the main tree
Wow.
to
I
grow.
haven't seen that. I love that though.
It's just amazing, and it just shows you the power of connection, which we are lacking. I think
Yes.
COVID kind of there were many benefits that people got from COVID, using more of technology to connect. But then there were a lot of downsides too. We don't have that physical connection where you can really feel someone's energy. When you say somebody, oh, yeah, they walked in the room, I just felt it. It's true. You
Yes.
can feel that. I love the fact that you're using photography to really connect people and get people to express themselves. And art photography gives people a platform to share emotions and feelings when words seem so inadequate.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'd like people to be able to find you and connect with you for your lens method if that's something they're interested in. And do you have a website or a
Yes.
link or?
I have a website. It's my photography website, and my lens method information is on there as well. It's just my name, CareyKirkella.com. So CareyKirkella.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, all the things.
Thanks for being brave and sharing your story of mental illness and recovery.
Absolutely.
Um, and I do believe that out of the most darkness, we can develop this bright, beautiful, vibrant color energy that is what our purpose really is. So
Yes.
I love talking to you, and you guys look her up. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of transformation and growth. I will drop links in the comments. Hit that bell if you're on YouTube and subscribe to the channel on Apple or Spotify. Leave me a rating because that really does help expand the reach. Keep catching that soul shine. I'll see you next week.